The recent trend in tiny house building intrigued me. Everything from turning a shed into a home, a shipping container, or even a van fascinated me. The way so many of these people moved out of city living and into isolated living off the land by growing their own food in gardens made from recycled materials had me wondering if I could do something like that. I recently broke it off with my girlfriend and wanted to move out of the city. One too many break-ins, nasty bouts with slumlords, and the general consensus that the world seemed to be broken made me long for a simpler life. I decided to take a risk and try it for myself. I felt intrigued about suitable land that allowed for city water and electrical hookups. My friend Micah referred me to reach out to a friend's father, Dave. I knew that he had loads of property in the wooded areas not far out of Columbus. The gentleman in question often allowed campers to rent his land for scenic nature experiences. He made a lot of money in the summer months, but would he be interested in letting me rent and build a house on his property? I got his number from my friend and called to discuss it with him. Hello. Hey, my name's Kurt. I was referred to you by Micah Ashley regarding some rental property that you might have available. Micah, you say? Yeah, he's my friend. Good guy. I got a spot. What did you want to do? We talking camping for a weekend or a week? I'm actually looking for an area that I can rent to build on. I'm trying to downsize, and I was told you might be someone to reach out to. There was a long silence, and I had to look at the phone to make sure he hadn't just hung up on me. Yeah, I got a place. You can come meet me tomorrow, and I'll give you the tour of the property. Then we can discuss payment. The next day I met Dave on the property. We discussed what I wanted to do, make a home on the land and pay monthly rent. He seemed eager to rent the property to me, but there was a stipulation. I need the full year's rent up front, and you can do whatever you like out here. I only ask that you're quiet, as the horses get spooked easily. I thought about it and then finally agreed. Dave said he would even help me get in contact with a contractor, one of his buddies. The cost was more than I had anticipated, but it was worth it. I was going to own my own home and nearly 10 acres of land with only one neighbor. I was also given free rein on how I wanted to construct. So, as promised, my journey began. I found one of those shipping containers on eBay from a guy in Pennsylvania who was selling it for about $650. I just had to pay to haul it back. Once again, I was assisted by Dave, who just so happened to have a truck to haul it. It was nice to be living so close to a guy that was so kind. I set up close to the unit and began working on the interior immediately. I didn't make it to have a ton of extra fixtures. I was mainly going for a couple of windows, a bed, a space to store my things. The contractor that Dave sent me was a good guy, and he helped me with the design, but I put everything together. I'm proud of what I came up with. There were a few things I didn't expect, one of which that I could get running water, but the toilet wouldn't flush as well as I liked it. I almost decided on a composite toilet. Still, Dave said that of all the things, he could not allow the dumping of any kind on his property, nor did he want me creating a large garden bed, which seemed odd to me because he'd been so cool about everything else. So that meant the composite garden was out unless I grew these things in a box on my makeshift patio. So, after a few months, I was settling in. When they said that nature was healing, they didn't lie. I spent most of my time working and sitting on my new deck. It was peaceful and calming. It wasn't long after the first month that I noticed something about my new tiny house. While it was exactly like the ones you see on those home and garden style TV shows, there was just something that began to make me feel uneasy. I woke up one morning to the sound of my shower running. When I got out of bed, I could have sworn I saw someone running out my side door that led to the new patio. I never jumped out of bed so fast. I ran to the door and saw nothing where I should have seen someone running away. I called Dave that very morning after the sun came up. I asked him if he'd seen anyone on the property. He said he'd check his security cameras, which he did while I was talking to him. Dave said he couldn't see anything unusual, and I was more than welcome to check them myself. He even offered to install one for me. Again, he was a guy that was nice and polite. Yet I opted not to take him up on the offer. Instead, I decided to install my own. I got one that required a phone app and had infrared availability. I still need to get it delivered to my new residence. Instead, I had the new camera delivered to my post office box that I set up when I moved in. Once I installed it, I could do nothing but wait. I ended up waiting about a week or so, but there was nothing. Perhaps I was just losing my mind. Maybe what I had seen that morning was just me dreaming. That would have explained what I saw. I was sleeping when the second instance occurred. I was dead to the world when something woke me up. It was my phone. My cell had several notifications from the camera app. I sat up in bed and clicked on the first one. All I could see was what looked like two eyes that appeared off the deck of my tiny house. I skipped past it, assuming that it was just a deer. Second notification was that of a shadow, but I couldn't make out what it was. The third notification, I clicked on it, and there was nothing there. I clicked on the last one, and it was completely black. I was annoyed, but I went back to sleep. The next day, I had to go into town for work. We had some big meetings that required me to show up in person. I sat in the large auditorium, taking notes from the CEO about security changes that we had to make on our work computers. I was trying to pay attention when my phone dinged. I looked down, and there was another notification from the camera app. This time I saw what looked like a woman with shaggy hair and hardly any clothes on. She was standing, staring at my patio door. She wasn't moving. She just stood there. Within a few minutes, she had moved closer, but I didn't see her walk. She just appeared. Then in the background, it looked like something or someone was standing behind her. At that point, the camera went black. I can't tell you the feeling I got from watching her. I didn't know if she was flesh and blood or a ghost or what she was. I drove home after my meeting in a state of panic. I was concerned with my safety, but also wondering if I was overreacting. It could have just been a curious camper from one of Dave's other rentals. I pulled onto the property and saw Dave, waving at me as I drove past him towards the drive next to my newly created tiny house. That's when I saw something strange. One of the planter boxes I had set up on the patio railing, which had some herbs in it, had been knocked over. I picked it up and cleaned it up as best I could. I noticed someone standing behind me and turned to see Dave shaking his head. "Looks like we got raccoons. We got to be careful when we plant things. This is why I said no gardens. Can't tell you the number of times we tried, but the missus and I never got anything to take. We tried setting fences, but whatever lives around here always got in." I thanked Dave and watched him go back inside his own house. I placed the planter box back on the deck rail, hoping it would stay put this time. That's when I noticed something else. There was what looked like a hole under my new house. Could it be an animal? I'd have to set a few traps and relocate whatever it was. I certainly didn't need an infestation of groundhogs or rabbits. I put my briefcase inside the house, locked the door, and went to take a shower. I was standing in the shower for a while when the water suddenly shut off on me. What the hell? I grabbed a towel and went to investigate. When I went to look outside to see what could have stopped the water, I saw a man standing on my deck. Wasn't just any man. It was Dave, and only he didn't look like himself. He looked disheveled and broken, with a furious expression on his face. "Hey Dave, everything okay? The water shut off," I said as I stood there half naked. Dave didn't say anything. He walked around the other side of the house, and when I went to follow him, he disappeared. Like, completely disappeared. I'm not sure what to make of it. The water came back on a second later when I walked into the house. I felt awful for pissing Dave off, only something didn't feel right. I was driving into town the next day, and I stopped to talk to him while he was carrying some feed to the cows. "Just wanted to apologize for anything I could have done to make you angry," I said, looking at him. Dave just stared at me, puzzled. "Sorry, I don't think you've ever done anything disrespectful. You pay your utilities, you take care of things around here. You've paid your rent for the next 10 months. You must be mistaken." "Nah, I mean, when the water shut off, you stood on my porch and you looked pretty pissed." "Kurt, I got no idea what you're talking about." Now it was my turn to be puzzled. I have no idea what I'm supposed to think. Could Dave have multiple personalities? Does he black out on a regular? I don't believe that's the case. I don't really know where to go from here. I'm not terrified, but after my conversation with Dave last night, I was awoken again by the app on my phone. At that very minute, it gave me a live feed of that woman standing outside. Still, when I looked at the patio, there was nobody there. The next day, I noticed that the hole near my patio had gotten bigger. That was about 3 weeks ago, and so far, no new weirdness has occurred. I'm not sure what to think. If anything new happens, I'll be sure to write about it. Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining me for tonight's story. If you think you might be able to handle just one more creepy tale, go ahead and click on one of the stories you can doubtlessly see appearing at the end of this one. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button too. Maybe hit that bell so you don't miss any of the spooky things that we do here. If, like so many of my patrons, you decide you'd like to get your spooky a little bit earlier, why not come on down to Patreon and have a look at some of the great tiers that I have. My $5 tiers get their spooky a little early, and they have their name read out at the end of every TikTok and every YouTube video that I make. If you'd like a copy of my latest book, there's a link below to my Amazon profile. I've got mini books. I'm sure you'll find one that'll suit you there. I always recommend Stragview Stories, as it's the one I'm the most proud of. It contains a large collection of prison horror stories out of Stragview, the prison that I've made in the Georgia Hills. So, if you'd like to have a look, come on down. Before we go, let's go ahead and thank our patrons. Thanks to Janet for being our Spooky Skeleton tier contributor, and thanks to Winter, Xaronan, Emily Coltsfoot, Stephanie Carrington, Marianne Schuler, Tyler Parker, and Jennifer Damron for being my Ghostly Reader tier contributors. Thanks, everyone. We just couldn't do the show without you. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.